Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a document that's generating quite a bit of buzz, especially, I think, for our listeners at the Defense Acquisition University. It's executive order titled Modernizing Defense Acquisitions.
Right.
And, think of this less as just another policy memo and more like, well, potentially a real game changer for how the DoD equips the military.
Absolutely.
So our mission today in this deep dive is really to get beyond just a summary. We want to explore, the core ideas behind it, the specific actions it calls for.
The what and the why.
Exactly. And crucially, what this could actually mean for your work, whether you're teaching the next generation of acquisition pros or you're about to become one.
And we should probably mention we're sticking close to the source here. This is based on the official text of the executive order itself.
Straight from the horse's mouth. We're going to unpack the why and the how behind what seems like a pretty significant shift.
That's right. It's less about interpreting hidden meanings and more about understanding the direct instructions. For the DAU community, like you said, this isn't just academic theory. It's potentially the future of how defense acquisition gets done.
Okay, so let's dive in. Maybe start by laying the groundwork. Sections 1 and 2 seem to set the stage, giving the context and the big goals.
Sounds good. Section 1, the purpose.
Yeah, it kicks off pretty strong, doesn't it? Talking about the president's commitment to most lethal warfighting capabilities.
It does. And what jumped out at me was the specific mention of the defense industrial base and, importantly for our listeners, the defense acquisition workforce.
Right, calling them national strategic assets. That really elevates the whole field, doesn't it?
It frames it very deliberately, and then it gets quite, blunt about the problem.
Yeah, it points fingers at years of misplaced priorities and poor management. Says the current system lacks speed and flexibility.
It's a pretty direct critique, setting up the need for change. And the stated goal that follows is just as direct. Deliver state-of-the-art capabilities at speed and scale.
Through a comprehensive overhaul. Big words.
Very big words, which leads right into Section 2, the policy section.
Okay, so what's the core policy here?
It's stated very clearly. Accelerate defense procurement and revitalize the defense industrial base to restore peace through strength. That's the mission statement, essentially.
Accelerate and revitalize. And how does it propose doing that? What are the strategies?
Well, it talks about rapidly reforming antiquated defense acquisition processes. Big emphasis, again, on speed, flexibility, and execution.
Okay, speed, flexibility, execution. Makes sense.
And it also specifically calls out modernizing the duties and composition of the acquisition workforce. That's you guys again, and maybe the most interesting bit.
Go.
A push to incentivize and reward risk-taking and innovation among acquisition folks.
Okay. Risk-taking. That is interesting. Because, acquisition hasn't always been known for rewarding risk, has it? Often it's the opposite.
Exactly. It's often about risk avoidance, driven by, good reasons like accountability, taxpayer dollars. But this policy suggests maybe shifting that balance.
The big question there, I guess, is how you actually do that. How do you define and reward, what did it say, measured and calculated risks?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Fostering innovation without throwing out necessary controls. That'll be tricky to implement.
Definitely something for DAU faculty and students to chew on. Okay, let's move into the nitty-gritty. Section 3, acquisition process reform. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? Mandates action.
Right, and fast. The Secretary of Defense gets, 60 days to develop a reform plan?
60 days, that's tight. Okay, so subsection A, what's the focus there?
It's all about prioritizing existing ways to speed things up, existing expedited authorities. It even sets a sort of pecking order.
A pecking order? Like what?
Yeah. First preference, commercial solutions. And Section 8C clarifies this isn't just, buying tensils.
Yeah.
It includes VAR Part 12 buys, DFARS commercial procedures, but also privately funded industry stuff that could meet military needs.
So really look hard at what the commercial market already has before starting something new and bespoke.
Exactly. It signals a potential mindset shift.
Yeah.
Can we adapt existing tech quickly? Could be faster, maybe cheaper.
Okay, commercial first. What's next in the pecking order?
After commercial, there's a general preference for using other transactions authority, OTAs.
OTAs. We hear a lot about those. How does the order define them?
Section AG just points to the standard definition, basically. Those more flexible agreements that aren't your typical FAR-based contracts, grants, or cooperative agreements. Great for non-traditional contractors, fostering innovation.
Yeah.
More agile.
Gotcha. So commercial, then OTAs. What else?
It also says to apply rapid capabilities office policies, the RCOs, To list them out, Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force.
Right, those offices are already designed to cut through red tape for urgent needs.
Mm-hmm. And finally, it says use any other authorities or pathways to promote streamlined acquisitions under the Adaptive Acquisition Framework.
The AAF Section 8A links that back to DODI 5000.02, right? Delivering effective solutions quickly.
Exactly. And the real kicker here
Yes.
is that the order says these expedited pathways need to be prioritized immediately, like right now, in all pending and new contracts, while the 60-day plan is still being developed.
Wow, okay, so no waiting around. Start using these tools now. That sends a message.
A very clear message of urgency, yes. Then subsection B turns inward, looking at the workforce itself.
What does it ask for there?
It mandates a detailed process review of all the functional support roles. Think program managers, contracting officers, engineers, financial managers, cost estimators, logisticians, the whole team.
And the goal of this review?
Pretty straightforward. Eliminate unnecessary tasks, reduce duplicative approvals, and centralize decision-making. Basically make the internal machinery run smoother and faster.
Makes sense. Streamlining the process by streamlining the roles. This could really change how acquisition teams operate day to day.
Could definitely impact team structures and interactions,
Yeah.
all aiming for efficiency.
And the last part of Section 3, subsection C.
That requires setting up a formal configuration steering board. Section 8D ties this to DODI 5000.85. It's about managing risk, reviewing requirement changes, tech configuration changes annually.
Who on this board?
The big players. Under Secretary for A&S, the Service Acquisition Executives, Component Acquisition Executives, it's about top-level oversight for program changes.
So, a mechanism to control scope creep and keep programs on track from the top down.
That seems to be the idea. More strategic control, faster decisions on potentially disruptive changes.
Okay, interesting. Let's shift gears to Section 4, Internal Regulations Review. Sounds like a crowd pleaser.
Maybe. It targets the jungle of defense acquisition regs. Subsection A basically tells the SecDef to review and revise DoD acquisition rules.
Focusing on what specifically?
Getting rid of or changing unnecessary supplemental regulations and other internal guidance. It even names names like parts of the Financial Management Regulation and DFARS.
I bet some listeners just cheered. Simplifying the rulebook.
Well, the complexity can be a barrier. So the aim is a lighter, more agile regulatory touch. And subsection B really doubles down on that.
Oh, so?
It wants the regulatory changes to promote expedited and streamlined acquisitions. But here's the really interesting part. It mandates applying the 10-for-1 rule.
10 for 1. From that other executive order, 14192.
That's the one. It means for every new supplemental regulation or piece of internal guidance proposed related to acquisition, they have to identify 10 existing ones to get rid of.
10. Wow. That's aggressive. That really forces a hard look before adding any new rules.
It's a strong deregulatory mechanism, designed to actively reduce the burden.
Okay, moving on to the people again. Section 5, Acquisition Workforce Reform. This requires another plan, right? 120 days for this one.
Correct. 120 days for the SecDef, working with the services and component acquisition executives. And subsection A hits close to home for everyone in the workforce.
How's that?
It's about performance evaluations, restructuring the metrics.
Okay, what kind of metrics?
They have to include the ability to demonstrate and apply. Well, the key themes of the order, things like first consideration of commercial solutions, using adaptive acquisition pathways from the AAF, and focusing on iterative requirements based on the perspective of the end user.
So your performance review could depend on how well you actually use these new approaches.
That's exactly it. It's about aligning incentives with the policy goals, trying to drive real change in how people work by changing how they're measured.
Makes sense. What else in Section 5, subsection B?
That calls for an analysis of acquisition workforce staff levels. Basically, do we have the right number of people with the right skills structured correctly to deliver capabilities under this new model?
A workforce review. Okay, and C.
Subsection C is about practical help. It mandates establishing field training teams.
Field training teams, like mobile support units.
Sort of. Run by the Undersecretary for A&S, led by senior acquisition folks who know their stuff on innovative authorities and commercial solutions, modeled on teams already authorized in law.
And what will these teams do?
Provide hands-on guidance, offer templates and case studies, and generally help the program teams actually use these new tools effectively.
So direct support to implement the changes, that seems crucial.
Could be very valuable, yeah. Bridging that gap between policy and practice. making people more comfortable with OTAs, commercial buys, AAF pathways.
And finally, subsection D. Seems like we've heard this theme before.
We have. It mandates developing policies, procedures, and tools specifically to incentivize using those innovative acquisition authorities, OTA, commercial, RCO, AAF again, and, back to our earlier point, to take measured and calculated risks in good faith.
There it is again, incentivizing innovation and risk, clearly a major thrust. But that definition of good faith and measured risk is still key.
Absolutely critical for making it work without causing problems.
Okay, section 6. This one sounds serious. Major Defense Acquisition Program Review. MDAP review. What's involved?
It is serious. Within 90 days, a comprehensive review of all MDAPs, those big-ticket programs defined in Title 10, is required.
Reviewing them against what?
Against specific criteria for potential cancellation.
Cancellation, wow. What are the criteria?
Programs could be flagged if they're more than 15% behind schedule or over cost compared to their current acquisition program baseline, their APB.
Okay, 15% cost or schedule overrun.
Or if they can't meet any key performance parameters. Or if they're simply seen as unaligned with the Secretary of Defense's mission priorities.
And the APB, Section AB, defines that based on Duty I 5000.85, the formal baseline.
Right. And if a program hits these flags, it goes on a potential cancellation list that gets sent to the Director of OMB.
Office of Management and Budget. So real consequences, potentially. This isn't just an internal review.
Seems like a very serious effort to hold these major programs accountable and ensure they align with priorities.
Anything else in that section?
Yes, subsection A2 also requires, within that same 90 days, providing OMB with a list of all MDAP contracts, showing how they're performing against their cost estimates, both original and approved. More transparency, more cost focus.
And after the MDAPs?
Subsection B says once the MDAP review is done, the SecDef has to give OMB a plan for reviewing all the other major systems, the ones defined in 10 U.S.C. Section 3041 that aren't MDAPs.
So the scrutiny extends beyond just the biggest programs, a pretty wide net.
It suggests a broad look across the portfolio, yes, potentially leading to significant resource shifts if programs are cut or changed.
Okay, almost there. Section 7, requirements. What's this about?
This one targets the front end of the whole process, the Joint Capabilities Integration and Development System, or JCADs.
JCADs. Section 8 defines it as the formal process for identifying and prioritizing joint military requirements.
Right. And within 180 days, the order mandates a comprehensive review of JCA.
With what goal?
Explicitly. Streamlining and accelerating acquisition. Trying to make that requirements definition phase faster and more agile. It's often seen as a bottleneck, so this review, involving the DepSecDef, service secretaries, joint chiefs, it's a high-level effort to potentially reform how requirements get set.
Makes sense. If you want faster acquisition, you need faster requirements.
Precisely.
All right, last piece. Section 9, the important caveats. What are the key points here?
Pretty standard stuff for an executive order, really. Subsection A says it doesn't mess with existing legal authorities of agencies or OMB's role in budgets and legislation.
Okay, standard disclaimer.
Subsection B is the practical reminder. Everything has to be done consistent with applicable law and, crucially, depends on the availability of appropriations. Money matters.
Always does. Can't implement without funding.
And subsection C clarifies that the order doesn't create any new legal rights or benefits that someone could sue the government over.
Got it. Standard legal protections for the government?
Exactly. They just clarify the boundaries. The policy direction is set, but it operates within the existing legal and financial realities.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. We've gone through the whole order. What are the big takeaways?
Well, the recurring themes are definitely speed, flexibility, innovation, a real push to leverage commercial solutions more readily.
And a willingness to shake things up, reviewing processes, regulations, the workforce itself, even major programs and the requirement system.
It's comprehensive, that's for sure. A major effort to change how defense acquisition works.
And for our listeners at DAU, this isn't just something to read about, it's the landscape they'll be working in or teaching about. These ideas, commercial first, OTAs, AAF, incentivizing risk, these could become central pillars.
Absolutely. Understanding not just the what, but the why behind these changes and thinking through the implementation challenges. That's going to be critical for faculty developing curricula and for students heading out into the field.
So here's maybe a final thought for everyone listening to consider. If these changes take hold, how might the traditional acquisition lifecycle, the way we think about programs from start to finish, fundamentally change?
Good question.
And related to that, What new skills, what knowledge, what mindsets will be most critical for acquisition professionals to succeed in this potentially faster, more flexible, maybe riskier environment?
Yeah, what does a future acquisition professional look like?
Exactly. We definitely encourage you to dig into the specific sections most relevant to you, talk with your colleagues, debate the implications. It's clearly a dynamic time for defense acquisition.
Understanding and adapting will be key.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.